Just want to give a quick thanks to the Tier 5 channel members and patrons. Bob the Dragon, Datamagnet, Sergeant Puma, Cat Crab Lobster, and Duck Machine. Thank you very much for the support. It is much appreciated. Story number 1. The Other Humans, written by Original Rich Game. Humans were fairly new to the galactic stage at the point of the dispute with Planet X-23A. This planet had been claimed by two different species, the humans and the Galath. The Galath were a fairly old species, but extremely militaristic. The Galath were strange in the idea that they were a hive mind, not exactly uncommon, but they had multiple queens who ruled the sort of democratic system amongst each other. The humans were different from what we had heard of them, although it wasn't much. They were very secretive. They wore bulky suits and rarely ever took them off. In fact, human space was heavily quarantined for being a very deadly environment. It seemed that we Hookums could live there if we wanted to, as long as we were in a gravity suits to help compensate for the crushing gravity. The humans also shared our body shape, more or less, being bipedal and having their head on the top of their body. They sounded similar enough to us, but a lot smaller. We had been invited on the bequest of the Galath to talks on what would happen with the planet. I think that they thought that we would side with their claim because of the fact that we had long-standing trade connections, and they were part of the alliance that freed our species from what we called the abductors. Since then, we had risen to the most powerful and technologically advanced species in the whole galaxy. "The human ship is requesting to dock," one of the men said. "Tell them to dock with the shuttle in Bay 9. Their ship is small enough to get in there." The Galath had already arrived and were actually docked on the other side of the ship. The Hetrol were impatiently waiting in the conference room. I took a turbo lift to the conference room. Unfortunately for us, we would have to keep the spacesuits to breathe as we had flooded the room with gases and placed a wall to divide the room into two so that the two gases could be used, which we were not accustomed to. Although the humans did come close, but with far too much oxygen. I stood in the room with the Galath ambassador. "Many sons," he said. A Galath standard greeting. He looked as if he was staring off into the distance, and I knew that I was talking to one of the hive minds directly. "Greetings, Your Majesty," I replied. He simply grinned. The hive mind must have found this amusing and turned away. Then the humans came in. They wore their armor, each with a different symbol on their shoulders and different colors on their armor. I thought these symbols looked oddly familiar. "Hello," one of the humans said. He had a deep voice, which was exaggerated, no doubt, by his suit. "I am the representative of the European Union. This is the representative of the British Solar Empire, the North American Union, and the Russian Space Federation," he said, pointing to each in turn. Why had they sent 4 representatives, I wondered. Maybe they were still a nation-state species. The talks began. The humans seemed oddly cunning, reminding me of our own species. Indeed, I couldn't see their faces, and they couldn't see my own, which made it hard to read facial features. However, whenever I threw some political nonsense that only ever applied to these situations at them, they seemed completely versed in this, as if border disputes were a regular occurrence to them. "I'm sorry to interrupt," I said. Not really, as the human in the red suit from British Solar Empire had been rambling on about border laws flawlessly. "But you can remove your helmets. We had specifically conditioned the atmosphere in your room to be similar to your own world." They looked at each other. "We would prefer to keep them on," the North American Union representative said. "I insist," I said back. "We did take a long time to sort it out." This was an utter lie. It took 10 minutes in reality, but we had been talking for 3 hours now, and I wanted even a small win. I was stunned by what I saw look back at me. The British Solar Empire representative had taken his helmet off. In fact, it was a she, but that was not what shocked me. They looked like us. Nose in the right place, eyes in the right place, ears, mouth with pink lips, pale skin, and blonde hair. The Galath had seen it too. "What trickery is this?" it growled through the sharp, scaly snout. "These are your children, not the humans." "I'm sorry, what?" the EU delegate asked. "I can assure you there is no trick, crocodile." What?" the Goliath said angrily. He and his assistant got up and walked out. I knew this was bad when it was essentially one of their queens after all. The humans looked annoyed and were getting ready to leave. "Wait," I said quickly. "Would you mind waiting here for a while?" 30 minutes, one of them said, not looking too pleased. I practically ran down the halls towards the doctor's office. "Joko," he smiled, "what can I do for you?" "No time," I panted. "Follow me." Now we were both running until we got to another office titled Xenobiology. "June," I said, "follow me." Now 3 of us were running, 2 looking very confused. The atmosphere on this side of the conference room had become habitable to us again as we walked in. 4 very shocked, very confused humans looked back at us. June and the doctor were stunned. They were looking at creatures that looked like us, but the size of children. Galactic confusion sprouted. 2 species living in space shouldn't look anything like each other. But here we were, nearly identical in all but size. Then the truth seeped out when our historians saw that humans had logos that looked all too familiar. They were us. Or rather, we were them. They were who we once were. The abductors had taken us from Earth before flight had begun to take root. Their flags were the old emblems of freedom in the textbooks of prehistory. We had gained FTL whilst they fought their First World War. We had taken our position as a major power in the galaxy when they had landed on the moon. Time and space changed our size and decompressed our skeleton, but we were practically the same. But Homo sapiens were different. They advanced at impossibly fast speeds after we gave them advanced FTL. A human alliance was made that reshaped the galaxy. Oddly enough, though, the issue over X-23A never got resolved. End of story. Story number 2. The Experiment, written by Wyvern 590. "Your theory is fundamentally flawed," this one answered. "Aren't Corians supposed to be the preeminent race of scientists? You have to be curious," Crickle persisted. "Why does the Crickle not conduct the experiment himself? Does Crickle believe that the human will react violently?" this one questioned. "You know how they are," Crickle responded meekly. "That is a stereotype which, in my studies, I've determined to be false. Humans are not a particularly violent species," this one chided the Murian. "Well, do it then and prove me wrong," Crickle stated, looking up at this one expectantly. "This one postulates that the Crickle has no intention of ceasing his harassment of this one regarding this matter," this one responded. "Nope," Crickle answered. "Very well," this one said and turned its head towards the human in the distant corner of the atrium. The specimen was a large male reading a data slate, and within 25.6 seconds the specimen suddenly removed his gaze from the data slate. It peered around the atrium for 3.1 seconds before leveling its gaze at this one. It was the most peculiar sensation. Every factor suggested that the human should not have realized that it was being actively observed. This one adjusted its gaze to another human, this time a female writing in a small journal. Curiously, the specimen lifted its eyes from its intense scribbling to look about the atrium as well, and eventually realized that this one was staring at it. This one repeated the experiment with every human within the atrium, and every one, without fail, would realize that it was being watched. This one returned its gaze back to Crickle, mind ablaze with curiosity and bursting with theories as to how the humans knew that was happening, ranging from passive telepathic abilities to microscopic sight organs. Crickle looked up at this one, eyes screaming out for an answer this one could not provide. My Corian pride caught the words in my throat as I spoke. This one does not know. The humans should seem to know when they're being watched. End of story. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed.